Hey YouTube, back again for another video. Sorry it's been a little while since I've done the last one. Had a little bit of bad news back in February, and I had a little incident with another speeding camera that's taken me over 3 speeding fines, so over 4 speeding fines, so I've got a little 6 months off. Anyway, enough of that. I'm trying to sit it out until the middle of August and then be back on the road and doing a few more tours. Got a couple planned to Spain and Portugal, which I went to last year, and then we've got another one going across to Luxembourg and the Alps and so on. Anyway, during that time, or during the last couple of months since it all happened, I've stripped the bike right the way down. Obviously I can't ride it, so stripped it right the way down and had it all sort of clean, serviced, did most of it myself, and just sort of getting it ready while I can, you know, ready for the rest of this year, what's going to be left of it. So I've done a few things, mainly cleaning, taken all the back end out, cleaned the centric hub, and all the other aspects around the back. Obviously I had all the belly pan off, and had the centre stand all powder coated, and you probably can't see it, but I've taken all the back rack off. That was rusting. The 2 poles that come out the back were rusting quite badly, so I've had all them powder coated, just haven't bothered to put it back on. So it's pretty much ready to go. Needs an MOT now, and I've just had, after putting it all back together, you might be able to see these oil spots on here. Would you believe it, after everything that I've done to it, the fork seals literally just blew as I was putting it all back together. So there you go, that needs to be done. The main reason for the video is not necessarily to talk about the bike and what I've done, but you'll probably see this this other monster behind me, the BMW S1000 XR, which happens to belong to my brother Chris, who I do a lot of riding with, and actually he's coming on that Spain and Portugal tour with me at the end of this year. But I thought I'd do this video, and a couple of people left comments in the previous videos that I've done, umpteen of them, about why I picked my Multistrada when I bought it 3 years ago, and what else I was looking at. And to be honest, the only other bike that I was looking at was the X1000 XR, because they're pretty close, not just because they're red, but they're pretty close in pretty much everything that they do. So I opted for the Ducati for lots of different reasons, but anyway, I opted for that. So I thought I'd try and do this little video just as a little head-to-head, and tell you about my thoughts about the 2 bikes. I'll bring Chris in a little bit later on. He can give you his thoughts about why he's bought the S1000 XR and not a Ducati, and we can sort of take it from there. But effectively, these 2 bikes, I know there's lots of other comparative or competitive bikes, if you like, for the Multistrada. People always look at the BMW GS, they look at the KTM. What else do they look at? Yeah, they're pretty much the main, you know, sports tourer, adventure style sports tourer competitors, obviously with the S1000 XR. But with both the GS, probably a little bit of an all-rounder, a bit more off-road capability, or a lot more off-road capability than the Multistrada. KTM, I love the idea of the KTM. The engine on that KTM 1290 Super Adventure S is unbelievable, but for me, I just couldn't do with the looks. Call me vain, but couldn't really do with the looks. So I love the look of the Multistrada, and I love the look of the XR. So for me, it would be between those 2. The other side of it is the specifications of these bikes are near as damn it identical when you look at it. I've ridden my brother's bike quite a few times. He's ridden mine quite a few times. And really, we've tried all sorts of performance tests. If we look at the performance tests, we've tried, you know, from a standing start, rolling start, 30, pull on from 40. And these bikes are near as damn it identical as far as the performance is concerned. They deliver it in completely different ways, but when you look at the out and out performance, they're pretty much identical in all the you know, the tests that we've done, real world tests, I would call it. So from that point, performance, there's not really one or the other. They both run obviously on 17-inch wheels. We run exactly the same setup as far as tyres are concerned. We both got Michelin Road 6s. I think we get pretty much the same mileage, so one doesn't wear more than the other. You know, the seating position and the riding position again is pretty much identical, what we've found, or what I found when I switched from one to the other, is that the riding position and the seating position of the Ducati are a lot closer to the handlebars, and it's a lot more sort of supermoto, if I want to call it that. The one thing I noticed when riding the XR was you seem to be a lot further back from the cockpit, further back from the handlebars, and you might notice, I'll give you a little walk around later on in a moment actually, but you might notice on the XR it's got some bar risers on it, which has been a fairly recent addition. When I rode it sort of more frequently, those bar risers weren't on, so I'd be quite interested to see you know, what it's like now. I haven't ridden it since those bar risers have been on, and I can't ride it for another 3 months or so, so I'll have to wait for that particular one. But really, when you compare the two, the setup of them is, you know, like I say, very, very similar. It's got active suspension, as you know. We've got the Skyhook on the Ducati, and we've got electronic suspension. It's got quick shifter. Like I say, it's pretty much identical. Even the back ends look very similar. I think my brother's just going to have a tail tidy put on his. I've had the tail tidy on mine for a long time. We've got panniers on the sides, top box as well. So from touring perspective, they're identical. But we've now pretty much agreed between us that we don't like top boxes, so we put the panniers on, and then we've got Krieger. We both got Krieger soft luggage that we put for touring purposes. So from that point of view, again, pretty similar. When you look at the cockpit, I've actually taken the screen off mine at the minute just while I refurbish it, but we have the sat nav and the iPhone all set up in pretty much the same way with quad locks and so on. So from that point of view, they are pretty much identical. When I looked back, going back to the performance side, when I rode, flipped between the two, the first time I rode the XR, I was changing gear probably far too quickly. It's so much more compliant, if you like, from changing gear at regular intervals. So from that point, I found myself getting into sixth gear purely because I felt as if it was asking me to change gear really early on. So within a sort of up to 40 mile an hour, I was into sixth gear. And obviously there is a different riding technique that you have with inline fours and bikes that rev like these do and deliver their power a little bit further on in the rev range. And you have to be a little bit more conscious to hold on to the revs. Obviously the power comes in really at 6,000-7,000. That's where you really notice the power come on, and the delivery of the power of the XR I found is like a rocket ship. Once it gets to that level, it's like having a twin cam. It's sort of, or the Honda variable valve timing, you know, that you used to have in the cars, not the bikes. It really came on again as if it had a different cam profile. It may well do. I don't know. I don't know too much about the technical side of it, but that's what I really found. Whereas, as we know with the multis, I wouldn't say they'll run out of steam at the top end, but it's quite a linear, very torquey progression right the way through, so without this dramatic change. I know we've got variable valve timing, but really it's a lot less pronounced, if you like, than I found anyway with the XR. I think pretty much as far as the weight of the bikes are concerned, they are pretty similar within a 10 kilos or so. I think the XR is slightly lighter, don't quote me on that. It's 10 kilos either way, and I can't remember which way around it is. So yeah, from a weight perspective and a handling perspective, I didn't, as you always do when you ride anyone else's bike, you know, although he's my brother, I don't want to have any accents here, I didn't push it as much as I do or can when I was with my bike. So grip levels, obviously the tyres are the same. Grip levels, I would imagine, are the same when we're riding at pace. We're pretty much, you know, side by side, neck and neck. So you know, obviously the bike handles really well. I think the other things, the sort of more practical things that you find, this one is a 2017 model, I think, maybe 16. So it's not the one with the TFT dashboard, not that makes much difference, but they didn't actually switch to TFTs, I think, in the XRs up until, I think, the 2020 model. So anything up to the 2020 model, you're still going to have the analog dials with the little LED in the front. So, you know, like I say, that's the only difference in the cockpit, if you like. I think all the other aspects as far as cruise control is concerned and the mode switching and so on is all pretty much, you know, done the same. I think once I've spoken to my brother about the MPG, or the consumption, I think the XR is slightly down. I get 50 miles to the gallon near as damn it, no matter how I ride it, thrash the arse off it or just touring. I always get 50 miles to the gallon, which is a bit, I don't know, it's unusual, but that's just a characteristic of it. I think the XR is slightly more juicy, maybe 45 miles to the gallon is roughly, I think, what he's getting. After the recent service that he had on it, because obviously these have got cam chains and that cam chain tensioner that needs to be adjusted, the chap that serviced it for him highly recommended that he runs the bike on super unleaded, which is something that I used to do on the bike, and then people said to me, there's no point in doing it, doesn't do anything, apart from obviously it's got less ethanol in it for E5 now. So I've been running mine on the last 20,000 miles or so just on normal unleaded, and I can't notice any difference either in performance or MPG. So, but obviously slightly different with the BMW, I think. In that, yeah, it needs to be, or the recommendation is to run it on super unleaded. If you've had any experiences of either of those comments that I made about running the Multi on just plain unleaded, not super, or vice versa with the XR, leave the comments down below. I'd be really interested to hear your comments. The other thing that we were talking about this morning is that I've changed my gear ratio, not my gear ratios, my sprocket ratios quite early on in the ownership of the bike, and I went from a 1540 setup to a 1542, as I think I mentioned in a couple of the other videos that I've done. I think that's one of the first changes I would ever make when I buy another one. Hopefully I can get another one of these in a year or so's time, but the sprocket setup seems to be quite different on the XR, and contemplating, you know, changing those as well, and they're quite a bit different. Again, I'd be interested to hear your comments. If you've owned both bikes, that'd be even better, but if you've gone to an XR and you're interested in sort of sharing your experiences about the sprocket setups, I think he's going down to let me just ask him, hold on a sec, what are you going down to?
16
from a
17.
So it's a 17, right? So there you go. It's a 17 sprocket on the front. He's going down to a 16. Do you know what the sprocket is on the back?
Just checking.
He's just going to check. So already the 17 setup is quite a bit different to ours, and again, I just find that interesting that that they've needed to do that or wanted to go down that route, and I'd be very interested to see why. So I think from that point of view, obviously in my current situation I can't take the bike out for a ride and show you side-by-side footage, but what I might well do is just, you know, bring Chris in here, and then he can give you a few of his observations about the ownership of the XR. Obviously he knows this bike, he knows how much it bloody costs to maintain them. He's seen all the bills and so on, and to be fair, he'd probably taken me up to my dealers quite a few times to pick it up, and always sort of rolls his eyes and falls backwards once I get the bill. So we'll actually see how much he's paying for the XR, just to get a few more comparisons on that. So I'll have a little walk around, show you what he's done to his bike first, and then we'll bring him in and ask him a few more questions. Right, so we'll just go over and have a little chat with Chris. There's the Multi, as everyone's seen many times before, and there is the XR. So, it's the proud owner. You haven't appeared on one of these before, have you?
No, first time.
Right, so how long have you had it, first of all?
Well, I bought the bike in April last year from a guy that used it for commuting to London and back to Kent.
Yeah.
It was, let's say, it was used for a purpose, just for commuting. Unusual bike for commuters, I think, but it was, let's say, it was unloved.
Yeah.
It had all the when I first got the bike, it was in a bit of a mess, really. Just untidy. used for that purpose. So we. I like the bike. I like the condition of it. It just needed sprucing up, really.
I think that's it. When I went up to pick it up with you, I took one look at it and thought, oh my goodness, you got it for a good price. To be fair, yeah, you got it for a good price. But I thought, oh my goodness, what's going to be underneath it all? Because it was nowhere near this condition.
So obviously, when I bought it, it had all the framework for the panniers, which I wasn't keen on. It didn't have panniers with it, but it just had all the framework with it. It was quite dull, so took it back and just started to put my touch on the bike as such. So the first thing was really to get rid of I've still got it all, but I took all the framework off. It was a standard bike. There was nothing added to it. It was just a bog standard bike. It had a standard exhaust on it, but I've changed.
You changed the exhaust quite a few times.
I've got quite a few exhausts for these.
How many roughly have you got?
So I've got 4 exhausts for these. So I've got the standard exhaust. I've got a Pro Race BMW single pipe, but I've also got these just slash cut short pipes on it, which is, let's say,
obnoxious is the word.
Yeah, it's not obnoxiously loud, but for me, I like it. I do like the sound of it.
Yeah.
And I've also got a Scorpion 410mm silencer, which I put on occasion. I've actually only put it on once, but
right.
It's nice, but it's just not. That hasn't got that sound to it. So I'd ridden one once before an XR, literally for about 5 minutes, and I just it's true what they say about the Gen 1s. It's quite a racy engine, a little bit noisy. Everybody says about the cam chains. It's just a characteristic that you have to get used to. If you love the bike, you're just going to have to get used to it.
It's the vibes that a lot of people.
A lot of the vibes.
I didn't really notice it, to be fair.
Sure, but again, I'd researched the bike, and I put some heavy bar ends on them, some Evertech heavy dual bars on them.
Evertech Performance,
and it really made a difference.
Yeah.
Especially down sort of 3,000 to 4,000 when you're just riding along. When you open the bike up from sort of 6,000, you tend to. Although the noise, the noise from the bike is quite loud, but the revs itself is it smooths it out.
Yeah.
So I find that those bar ends make a hell of a difference for me. A couple of other things that I've done for it. I took again, taking the frame off.
Yeah.
I took the rear pegs off, which
is that an MOT failure?
Yeah, people do say that if you've got a pillion seat, then you should have rear pegs on it, but I think there's a bit of a grey area with that. I mean, if you can have a cover put on them, and then apparently it's okay. As far as general riding, long distances, the seats really comfortable. It doesn't look.
Yeah, it's quite sculpted.
Standard, although this is a new seat. I bought this about 5 months ago. It was second hand, but it was brand new. I find it's very, very comfortable. I mean, I've done 450 miles plus 500 miles in a day. Yeah. No issue. Yeah. Obviously get off and have a break every now and again, stretch your legs, and the riding position for me is absolutely fine. The pegs are fine. The only other things I've done really with the gear shifter, I thought that the other one was too small for me and it was hurting my foot.
Yeah,
so
that is quite a biggie, isn't it?
I put a much bigger gear
it?
changer on there. And I've also put a slightly bigger plate on the front.
Or the brake.
Rear brake, for the rear brake. This one here. So that's just it's fine for me. Certain boots, I mean, I use these TCX boots.
Jupiters,
fine. Other boots I've got a slightly bigger, but there's plenty of room there. The seating position, the peg position is ideal for me. I don't get any cramps in my legs or anything like that, in my knees or
I mean, we're both well built lads, aren't we? So
again, the riding position's fine for me. It is so different to the Ducati. When I first got on the Ducati, I was much closer to the front of the bike, where the seating position on here is much further back. So I was leaning forward a little bit to get my head in the right position as such, but now I've put these bar risers on,
Yeah.
and it's just, and these aren't just straight up bar risers, so these are up and back, if you like.
Where did you get those from, if you don't mind me asking?
I think I've got those off of eBay.
Right. They're not a brand.
They're not a branded one, but they're fine. That, you know, the build quality is fine for those.
Yeah.
I've never had an issue with them. The only thing that I would say is if you're doing the bar risers up and back, you may just have to move the front brake reservoir forward a little bit, because when you put this thing on full lock, it can be a little bit tight.
Is that the standard brake reservoir? You just put a different cap on the end?
It's just a different cap on there, but you just got to move that one forward because it can be a little bit tight here, but it's absolutely fine now. I've moved it forward. Right. One other thing.
Anything on the clutch? Oh no, you haven't. It's a cable clutch, isn't it, on these?
Yes. And then the other thing, I've changed the wing mirrors. These are Rizomas. They're quite small. Probably not ideal. They're more for aesthetics than anything else.
Shock horror.
They could be a bit longer. I have got another set of Rizomas which I'm going to have a look at just to put back on these.
So with this then, you know, as I said in the sort of lead in, you know how much the Ducatis cost to maintain and so on. What's your experience in the ownership?
Since I've owned the bike, so it was April 2022.
So just over a year, yeah?
Yeah, so I did an oil and filter change virtually straight away.
You did it?
Which I did that, and that's fine. And then really nothing more than that until last month. I wanted to make, because we're going away in September to Spain and Portugal. I just want to make sure the bike was fine, so I took it into an independent BMW specialist.
Okay.
Fantastic guy, and he's done the valve checks. He altered a couple of valve shims, but he said the condition of the bike. Now this bike has done 43,000 miles.
Okay,
yeah.
Less
so
than
I
mine.
bought it on 35,000.
So you've done that 8 or 9.
8 or 9,000 miles since I've had it.
And how many sets of tyres have you gone through on that?
This is my second set that's on it now, and if you can see, this is the new Road 6s.
Yeah.
I find that they are wearing better than the Road 5s. I've still got
Really?
the original Road. I've still got a Road 5 on the front.
Okay.
I've got another Road 6 to put on there.
Yeah.
But well, I'll change that when.
So the service cost, the service
so I
that
had
you.
a full service done. I had the cam chain tensioner that was done as well. Full service, everything done. Brake fluid changed throughout. When he completely went over the bike, and it was just over £500.
Wow, it's half the price.
And he is ex BMW. So yeah, I mean,
wow.
he knows his stuff, and yeah, I'm very pleased. And I don't know, it's always the way for everybody. Once they've had a service, you just feel more confident on the bike. You know, everything's running, ticking over lovely.
Yeah.
It did sound much quieter. Yeah, and I always knew about the cam chain tension, because on this one it is manually adjusted. There's lots of talk about having the oil filled one, but obviously then you've got to wait for the oil to come up, and then they've changed the cap so it puts more pressure on there.
Right.
So, but he recommended to keep with the manually adjusted, and if it needs adjusting, you can do that. Yeah.
Right.
With the oil one, it's set. You know, you're just running on the pressure of the end. What's the oil pressure in the engine?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, thanks for that, Chris. Just a bit of background there. What did you have before this? You
so
had.
This is, I've not been riding for that long, for only about 4 years now.
Yeah.
But this is my third bike. My very first bike after passing my test in 2019. I jumped straight on a K1600. Fully loaded. It was a K1600 GTSE, everything, all the bells and whistles, everything, the stereo, the panniers, the top box. It was a huge bike, beautiful bike, don't get me wrong, but for the type of riding that I like, the twisty roads, the back roads, whether it was my inexperience on the bike, but I just didn't feel confident going into corners, too much weight on the bike, so I chopped that in, and then I got a Honda VFR 1200, which was the DCT model.
The cross tourer.
Bike. Yeah, cross tourer.
Yeah.
Cross tourer. Great bike.
Yeah, I use that.
Great fun. Twist and go, if you like. Although it had the optional gear changing with an up and down button on the bars, which I used an awful lot, but fantastic off the line. Nothing really could.
No, you're right. Nothing could beat you off the line.
Beat me off the lights. It was, but great bit of fun.
And how long did you have that for?
I had that for about another maybe 18 months.
Okay.
Yeah, 18 months.
So now you've settled on the XR. Is this really what you're going to stick
Again,
with?
I'm always looking at other
You
bikes.
are, unlike me.
I just can't. I don't know if it's me. I just can't settle for one. But I do enjoy the bike. But I look at the KTM's. I look at the 1290s, the 1290 GT, Super Duke GT, as well as the Sports Adventure. But I think because everything's been done on it, I know the bike's running lovely.
Yeah.
Even with that mileage, it just feels it's tight.
Yeah.
It's corners.
Well, that's got another 20,000 on top of yours.
Exactly. So I'm happy to keep that for this summer. See what it's like after the tour, because that's going to be my biggest tour that I've done. I've done Scotland and I've done Wales a few times. But
you haven't done an overseas one yet, have you?
Not an overseas one, so it's going to be a real test for the bike. They do run hot. That's just a characteristic of the bike.
You want to jump on one of them?
When you're standing in traffic and it's 102 degrees and the fans are kicking in, it's normal. I haven't got an issue with that, but as soon as you're up and running on traffic, out of traffic, then the temperature comes down quite quickly. Haven't got an issue with it. Those bikes run, they're used to it. That's what they're built for. They just run hot. Every bike that I've seen, whether it's on YouTube or I've talked to other XR, it's the same story.
Yeah.
You may have a different story, but that's the story that I.
It's the same with the S1000.
The RR.
The RR. It's all based on the same engine, isn't it?
They just run hot. In standing traffic, when you're on the move, it's no problem at all. But yeah, I'm happy to keep this run for another, at least to the end of the year.
Cool.
And I'll maybe look in the new year.
All right, mate. Thank you for that. Well, hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight onto something slightly different on the channel. Not just all about the multi, but the other bike that I did look at a little while ago. So I hope you found that useful. Chris has had to disappear all of a sudden, so just gonna have to wrap up here. But yeah, hopefully you found the comparison between the two bikes of interest. I'd be keen to, obviously as I always am, to hear your experiences, especially if you've owned one or the other or both. And just leave any comments below and I'll try and get some feedback to you and some answers to you. And if Chris needs to reply to a few, then I'll get his take on it as well. So look, that's it for the minute. I'll be back on the road in the middle of August, fingers crossed. Well, not fingers crossed, I will definitely be back on the road in August. And I'll give you a little update on the couple of tours that I do and anything else that might happen to this lovely bike in between now and then. In the meantime, enjoy your summer or the rest of your spring and the summer, and I'll catch up with you later in the year. All the best.